And welcome back to this week's episode of Ask Luka. We had a lot of questions, so I'm going to go straight to it before I'm pretty much like got to be on a flight in like 20 minutes, which is the tendency I have to do everything last minute. So check this out. One of these week's questions is from Dustin, who's a high school basketball coach, and the question is, what are some of the best go-to kind of exercises to improve the vertical jump, first step explosiveness in basketball? We actually had a little longer conversation, ended up coming down to like, talking about mobility, all these different things, and saying like, hey, maybe what are the top 5? Now, I kind of have a tough time with doing like these little short kind of like do these 5 exercises and everything will be good. So I'm going to dig in a little bit into the whole explosiveness in basketball factor. First of all, when it comes to the vertical jump, there's pretty much 4 ways that you can improve vertical. Okay, one is like apply more force into the ground. So that's basically, strength, getting stronger. 2 is apply that force faster, right? So that's why powerlifters don't have the highest vertical jump, is because they can lift a lot of weight, but they can't do it in less than 0.2 seconds, which is where most kind of explosive activity starts happening, is like it gets applied in less than 0.2 seconds. Number 3 is something that people actually don't talk about. It's like lowering your body fat, right? Because the thing is like if I lower my body fat, my relative strength goes up. And for a lot of ball players, it's actually a big deal. Like if you drop 10, 15 pounds of fat, you're going to jump higher, just even not getting stronger, period. And number 4 is getting more efficient at jumping. And that one we kind of won't need to cover because, like I said, hey, listen, when at first, I could dunk the ball with somebody throwing it to me. Then after a while, after practicing with the ball and things like that, right? It's the efficiency of jumping and in practicing it as well. But we're going to cover mostly the first 2 today. So, with basketball players, here's the thing: is before we go into the exercise, we got to understand that, most players are very tight in their hips, no glute strength activation, and weak core. So those are things we need to address because exercises have to be done right and from a good structural position to get the most out of them. So I wrote down here because, right, explosiveness means, kind of like 0 to 60, right? So I'm going to break down certain exercises, and it's kind of go like just things that I would recommend for people to use to improve their explosiveness, period. But, it means like going from using 0 muscle to exploding out as fast as you can. And the first thing I would say is, too, is when you look at any player, any athlete, we kind of do a test which determines if they're more static proficient or dynamic proficient. All that means is this, right? There's guys that are pretty strong, but they're not as reactive, right? And then there's guys that are really reactive, but they're not as strong. So if you see a kid that's, hasn't lifted much weights, but like when he runs and he jumps, he's just bouncy, right? And he can just dunk and do crazy stuff. He's probably a dynamic guy, right? And then you got guys that are strong, but with their run-up, they're not really getting much more out of it. There's actually a test for that, which we won't go into today. But there's certain people that need more strength work, and there's certain people that need more reactive work. And there's some, like me, who kind of go in between, right? You're there, so you do a little bit of both to improve. Now, for most high school athletes, you're going to find that they're basketball athletes, they haven't really lifted weights. So they're usually weak. So they'll get the most out of improving mobility, core strength, activation, and being able to apply more force into the ground. So, up here I put hip flexor stretches once again, and, we could go into a bunch of different ones, but open up those hip flexors and then doing anterior core training, dead bugs, reverse crunches, even weighted ab work and things like that, so that, like I said, you go out of this extension, get core tight, and you can transfer force better. I always say, like, hey, the analogy of if your core is strong, right? If I put a piece of jelly here and I like pushed a pencil through it, the jelly would move a little bit, but not much, right? But if I put a rock and push the pencil to the rock would move. It's basically to transfer force. So if your core is weak, you're not really going to be able to jump as high as you possibly can and transfer force through the ground up. So these are really important. And then in no particular order, right, there's some other stuff. Box squats. And why do we like box squats? Because you actually have to pause at the bottom, right? So the question is, when we box squat, we go down control. Remember, we don't have to go below parallel. So you're sitting on a box way back. You pause, and I'd be at parallel, obviously. right? Core is tight, then explode out of it. So it's that 0 to 60 strength. And we'll also use like lighter weights, add bands, that's more advanced. But you always got to look at it like this, right? The strength speed continuum goes like this. Absolute strength, so somebody like a powerlifter. Strength speed, which would be kind of like Olympic weightlifter. Speed strength, where you're looking at like some throwers and things like that, and then speed would just be pure sprinting. So where on this continuum, like you want to probably train these two for a lot of basketball players. So, box squats, we'll do them heavy, but we'll also do them with lighter weight and going faster. Deadlifts, what type of deadlifts? I love snatch grip, but most people can't have the mobility to get that low, so we do a lot of trap bar deadlifts. For jumping, we'll actually do trap bar deadlifts off of like a 3-4 inch box or plates. Same thing, we'll also do trap bar deadlift jumps off of 3 inch plates, which is very specific to jumping. Depth jumps. Now here's the thing, is this is a little more advanced, but you can start on a really low step. All that is stepping off of a box and exploding up as fast as possible. So we're training that reactivity, right? How fast you react, the elasticity of the muscle. Kettlebell swings are great for, like I said, posterior chain work and ballistic movement. Glute ham raises, just because it works the hamstrings and glutes, and those are really like weak and underworked, and those are the main muscles that basically create power, not just horizontally, but I would say not just vertically, but horizontally for sprints and things like that. Bulgarian split squats are one of because single leg training is very important, especially in basketball, right? Everything is done on one leg. A lot of the jumping is done on one leg, and just creating that stability and more specific leg strength. So I like all types of lunges, but Bulgarian split squats are absolutely great for that. Medicine ball tosses, which would be here in the speed strength category, 10 to 20 pound med balls, and just being able to explode and let go and throw it as high up or as far back as you possibly can, and recruiting all those muscles that work in jumping are absolutely great. And they're, to me, a better alternative than what I wrote down here, the Olympic lifts, just because Olympic lifting, for a lot of kids, they can't get that mobility, right? So I'm not saying they're bad, because we use them with people that are proficient to have good shoulder mobility, good hip mobility. But these are the tosses are a lot safer, okay? And I prefer deadlifts with bands and speed deadlifts and box squats to cleans and snatches, although we do a lot of dumbbell snatches. So those are great, right? Single arm, dumbbell snatches exploding all the way above the head, much safer than with the bar. Push jerk, another great exercise you can do with kettlebells, dumbbells, barbell, right? Because we transfer force, right, from the ground all the way up overhead. Same thing, very great to train. And then just straight up vertical jumps, right? Jumping trains jumping, period. That's why I like a lot of ball players. They kind of get enough of that because you got a ton of practice, a lot of times too much playing in practice. So we want to focus more on, strength and strength speed with a lot of them, and throw in some speed strength as well. Like I said, this is general because you're always assessing the team, seeing what they need the most. But these exercises, if you're using them and putting them into a program in a smart way, will do a ton for you. You don't see, like I said, you see box squats. You don't see regular squats in there. Not that I don't love them. I use more front squats just because a lot of basketball players have really long spines, usually tend to be rounded, and putting a bar on their back with a back barbell Olympic squat, not usually a great scenario if they don't have mobility and core strength the way we want it to. So, right, there's always a bunch of it depends that kind of falls in here. We never talked about improving ankle mobility, all these other things that play a role in developing a great athlete and a great team that's explosive. And then obviously talking about how to get them to be conditioned to be able to keep that explosiveness throughout the game is once again another story. But if you're not doing these, like plugging these into your program would be a great idea. I'm just going to go ahead and probably create a 6-8 week program and put it on a blog. So you guys see an example of maybe a team because I know, I talked with Dustin that he has 2 days a week throughout the summer to train with the team. So if you had 2 days a week to get your guys stronger, what would the program be like? And I'll just map it out and give you guys some value there. So I hope that really helped and kind of gave you some insight on what are some exercises and, the philosophy behind it on getting athletes, especially basketball athletes, more explosive, improving their vertical, improving their first step quickness, and and plugging them into your programs and start using them. So Ask Luka's out. If you got any questions, send them to hashtag Ask Luka on Facebook, on Twitter, on our Instagram account. Shoot them to me by email or shoot a video, whatever you want to do, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Peace out. See you later.